Beyond the Ropes, a boxing podcast brought to you by Eat, Sleep, Boxing, Repeat. The place for the Northwest and boxing news, reviews, and interviews. Here's your host, Sean Basso.
Hello to you, the podcast listener. Great to have this episode of The Life and Times of. It's the second instalment today, and I really hope you enjoy this next one because it's one of the first guys I wrote about, and it was a really enjoyable experience to get him on the phone, have a chat to him, get his thoughts on his career, get his thoughts on boxing as a whole, who his favourite fighters were, all the little stories from back in the day. It was really, really good to hear from him. So in this second instalment of The Life and Times of, I'm proud to introduce you to former WBO Super Featherweight champion, the voice of BoxNation and now BT Sport, Mr. Barry Jones. Barry, it's great to have you on. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me, mate.
It's an absolute pleasure. It's been a wonderful journey into boxing for myself, and you're one of the first people I wrote about, and it was a really great article. I know a lot of people that know you seem to enjoy it, and it was great to meet you back at the Fury Parker show in September last year. It was great to finally meet you, and it was great to have you on this episode. And obviously for the listeners, they know what it is. It's The Life and Times of. It's documenting you, Barry. It's documenting your life and your story and your journey into boxing. So I think for me, the only place I can start is at day one, really, and your journey from the start and what got you into a boxing gym the very first time.
Well, to be honest, it was my brother, my elder brother, Stephen. He's 3.5 years older than me, so I just followed him down the gym. I can imagine most younger brothers do. Just follow your brother around, and he went and boxing was what he wanted to do. And I I had no ambition. I used to I was 9 years of age, and I didn't really watch any sports much. I'd play every sport and watch none. But yeah, I took the boxing, not because I was any good, just because it suited my personality. I was hyperactive, couldn't sit still, and boxing seemed to be a sport where you're constantly involved, and the training was quite hard, and I liked that because I needed to burn off a lot of energy. So I did it for that, and then when I was 10 years of age, you were allowed to have, back then in the 80s, you were allowed to have 4 fights when you turned 10. So I had my 4 fights. I lost my first one, and then I sort of won the next 3, and then the next season, then I sort of carried on and had a big run and undefeated fights. And yeah, by the time I got to like 14, I'd won a Welsh title, and I sort of started to get good, and that's when I started to take it. I didn't think this was going to be a career, because I didn't think about a career. I didn't know how good I was going to be. I just knew that I was okay, so I was winning titles, and that, winning stuff is the biggest drug in the world. Success and winning, picking things up. Yeah. And obviously my brother was a British schoolboy champion as well at the time, so chasing him was a big incentive as well, trying to better my brother. And my father as well was heavily involved, really supportive, and used to come down and help with the training, and without being pushy. And it's a fine line with being a supportive parent and a pushy parent, and he got it just right.
Going back to your amateur days then, Barry, going back to some of the competitions you were involved in, you fought at European level, you were also competing in the World Amateur Boxing Championships as well. That experience taught me through it.
Whoa, hang on. I got a silver in Europeans. I've
not forgotten about that, don't you worry.
To be fair, back when people weren't winning medals in any sort of competition, to be honest, the home nations, we weren't really doing very well, because we weren't used, like they are now, used to different styles of boxing. But the computer scoring just was introduced, and it was literally, the computer scoring has changed sort of design over the years, the way how things are scored. But that computer scoring there in the early 90s was as if they all sat down and said, how can we devise a system that will help Barry Jones further his career? It was made for me. It really was. So it was great. High guard, tight fence. I used to box quite slightly different as an amateur than as a pro. I wasn't this dance around guy who had no power in his shots. I was never a power puncher, but I was in and out, busy. I'd always move. I was busy, and I was a good body puncher. I'm not saying I was like the Ricky Hatton of amateur boxing, but I could drop a lot of people's body shots. I could bang a little bit, enough for respect, and so I was a bit more aggressive. But I was a counter puncher, always a trade. And the computer scoring back then suited me. So I was boxing 6-foot featherweights, and I was like a natural featherweight from 15 to when I retired. I was always a featherweight, really. And then so I won that. Went to the World Championships, didn't win. I'm not one of these boxers who thinks he gets robbed every fight, but I did get robbed in the World Championship. I'm not saying I would have won a medal, but I should have gone to the next round, and I never. And then I turned pro. I didn't really have no. I always wanted to turn pro. Once you get to like 16, you want to be a world champion.
Yeah.
That's your ambition. You know, Ray Leonard was boxing, and that's who I wanted to be, just like him in every facet. But I didn't think about turning pro, but someone approached me, and typical the way I am, just going along with whatever, I said yes. I was 18 and turned pro, and I should have waited for the Commonwealth Games. They were 2 years time. Back then again, the Commonwealth Games, winning a medal of the Commonwealth Games was a big deal, because it's not the most difficult competition out of all of them to win medals, but it's one of the most publicised. So you get a lot of attention on BBC, and obviously that means your bargaining or your worth is a little bit more when you turn pro. So I didn't turn pro with Frank Maloney, who obviously Kelly was Frank back then, or Frank Warren, or Barry Hearn, who was before Eddie was involved. He was a kid, Eddie, then. But yeah, I turned pro with Billy Ayres, an ex-heavyweight who was a Scouser living in London. He might have been in Bournemouth at the time with a pub. And my old trainer Pat Thomas, who was a double British welterweight and like middleweight professional champion. Yeah, turned pro with them just because he said, you want to be turned pro, and I said yeah. And my signing on fee was a pair of shorts and a dressing gown.
How times have changed.
And a pair of boots. And my first wage was 350 quid.
Wow, it just goes to show you how much things have changed, doesn't it, from today? I mean, that was back in 92, wasn't it, when you were turning pro? So it's what's that, 20? I can't even do the maths. 26 years ago. 26 years ago you turned pro.
But I'm not that old. It don't make any sense. It's impossible. I never turned pro for the money. That was the thing. No, we all want to be rich and stuff, but I never had no aspirations of this delusions of grandeur about being a multi-millionaire, multi-weight, multi-belt champion. I thought I could be a champion. I didn't know, but the British title was my aim, because I thought that was a realistic aim. But I didn't ever think about money, and it was always about the sport and how good I could be and winning stuff. Like I said, once you start winning titles as an amateur, you want to win titles as a pro. Yeah. I thought I could do that, and but the money was never an issue. So I worked throughout my career. You see boxers now saying they can commit themselves to the sport because they have to carry a job up. Well, I worked throughout up until I won the world title. I worked. I was never out of work. And the day I won the world title was the day I packed in my job.
What was it you did? What was it you worked as?
I was a lot of things. I was an apprentice electrician for a long time. That was what I'd done for most of it, to be honest. And then I was doing some fireproofing for shopping centres and things like that. So I always had a job, and boxing was just extra money. And for a long time it was like I was getting 750 quid or £1,500. So there's not much you could do with that except for spend it and enjoy it. My wages kept me alive, kept paid the bills, and my boxing money was for little extras. Obviously I had a daughter as well then in '93, so I had to earn. I had a family to support at a young age, and so but still boxing was never about money. It was I'd work, I'd run in the morning because I wouldn't, and then I'd work all day, and I'd go straight on a boxing gym and I'd train and sleep, eat, repeat. That was pretty much what it was, and that was my life. I lived every minute of it. It was what it was.
Well, going back to your first professional fight, then I ask a lot of guys this. Obviously, guys that have either way into the career or guys like yourself that have had the careers. Can you remember what that feeling was like the first time you stepped through the curtain to go to the ring?
The same as every other fight. Absolutely cacking myself. It was. I wouldn't look it. I'd look quite confident because I'm nervous, like every fight I've ever had. Nervous, but I had a system of used to happen in the amateurs. You never knew when you were fighting. Yeah. Or sometimes you would go to. It's different now, but back then you go to a lot of shows we call it on spec, where you don't know if you're fighting. You just turn up. And because my dad had a works van and then a car, I would go to shows twice a week because they had other fighters. The trainer wanted to take other fighters to other shows around Wales, so I would go there, on spec. And then most fights were made on the night, so you never knew when you were fighting or if you were fighting. So I would constantly walk around and just stay loose, and that's what I did as a pro on the night. I'd always just walk around, go into the crowd. When I fought for the world title, I was literally in the crowd talking to my mates like 45 minutes before I went in the ring. And then my father would come and drag me out. What are you doing? Get in here, because that was what it wasn't a sign of arrogance or low confidence. That's what kept me relaxed and kept me away from get all those thoughts, any negative thoughts into my head or being overawed by the occasion. So I just kept loose, and that's what I did with my first pro fight. Went into the crowd. The crowd wasn't massive, to be fair. It was in the leisure centre, but speak to my friends and slowly loosen up. And the worst part is getting your bandages. The worst part, because you have to sit still, and I struggle sitting still to this day. And so you got your arm over the chair, and it takes a while to do your bandages, and your arm starts to ache, and you start to get nervous, and obviously the guys doing your bandages, it's usually your trainer. He's sort of giving you little tips, but it seems real. But it's still another maybe 45 minutes before you get in the ring, and you start getting a bit, God, just steady up so I can get them walking around, moving around. And then when they put the gloves on and you have to walk, the gloves is okay. When you put the gloves on, it's quite good. But then that walk, when the whip will come up and say, right, you're on next, and you have to, that walk to the ring is a daunting experience, to be honest. Where I think a lot of fights can be won or lost. I don't think fights are won or lost in press conferences or weigh-ins, but I think that little walk to a changing room is to the ring, from changing room to the ring. You can lose your ball. Yeah. I never did, thank God, but I think you can. I think if some fighters freeze, I would imagine it's that, because then if you've skipped training or you haven't done things quite right, all those little doubts will enter your head, or you sort of go like me, I couldn't punch, and then you think, oh, he can punch, this kid on fight, he can half dig a little bit, and that can consume you. You can start to worry about that. So I think that little walk there, it's almost like they call it that green mile, they call it, don't they? That death row. It's like that a little bit. It can be like that, or it can be the other way. If you're a real confident kid, and you can be, it can be like like a walk of fame, a catwalk for you, I would imagine. But I think it can work both ways. I think it happened the other night with Carl Frampton and Luke Jackson. I think that walk to the ring, I think he didn't swallow it, but I think it consumed in that Belfast crowd. And where Carl Frampton, he fed off it, and he was buzzing off it. Where the other kid sort of thought, "Oh, this is real." I think that can happen to you. But my first pro fight was brilliant. The kid was 3-0 with 2 knockouts. He didn't turn out to be a great fighter in the end. Con McMillan turned to be a bit of a journeyman type in the end. But at that particular time, I was 18 years of age, and there was no YouTube or anything like that. Never seen him box. I doubt my trainer or manager had seen him box, but he was 3-0 with 2 knockouts. And I was 18 having my debut, and that was how it was back then. It was sort of, I fought enough journeymen, but you'd have proper apprenticeship. I had a proper apprenticeship throughout my career. I did. I'm quite proud of it. I have a very much of a realistic view of my world title, to be honest, because I love boxing. I think boxing's, I think there's a lot of us guys who are world champions who in the real world, I call it, wouldn't be world champions. But my apprenticeship was a proper apprenticeship, which you couldn't knock. You could knock my apprenticeship. My first sort of 12 fights, I don't think anyone could knock it at all. It was the right amount of fights, the right level of fights to get me to a British title fight, but easily.
Well, it's funny you say that, because obviously, when you look through and you look back to your record, you fought in your hometown for your first 4 fights, fought in Cardiff for the first 4, at the Star Leisure Centre, so you'd fought there a couple of times, and then you go into 93 and you fight at Old Trafford on the undercard of Nigel Benn and Chris Eubanks rematch.
I do, against a kid from, I think it was Salford, John White, and he was a good kid, a real big puncher. I think he was 7-0, and I was about, I don't know if I was 5-0, I can't remember. I think I was 5-0.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
And I boxed great. It was only 4 fights on that night, or 5 fights, I think it was 5 fights, and I was one of them. So one of only 10 people to box in Old Trafford, which is not a bad little thing. It was a great experience, and I took that. And that, like a lot of my career, late notice. That was a week's notice, that fight, which to be honest, for me, wasn't late notice. That was enough. I remember I was stood in my rugby club the week before, sulking with curry and chips at about I can't remember what it was, midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. It was maybe that late. I'm not sure. Anyway, because Lennox Lewis defended his world title against Frank Bruno in Cardiff, and I couldn't get on the bill. They couldn't get me on the bill. I'm thinking, well, I sell tickets, and I can't get on. I'm undefeated in 5-5 from Cardiff, and I can't get on this bill. And then I got a phone call the next morning saying, "Do you want to box in Old Trafford?" So I had 6 days notice actually, and I went, "Yeah, please." So I didn't get the box on Lewis and Bruno, but I got the box on Ben and Eubank, which not a bad little consolation prize. But even though I had those first 4 fights in Cardiff, they were good fights. Like again, Con McMillan was undefeated. Greg Upton was the only kid I stopped with a cut, to be fair, but bless him. But he was only 3-1. He wasn't a bad fighter, to be fair. And Mike Devaney, who lost, I think he lost 4 fights. I think he had about 7-4, something like that, 8-4. But he was an Olympian 4 years before that. And he went on to be a British professional champion about 2 years after. So they were good fight. They was, even though I had the home advantage, they were good. It was a fantastic apprenticeship. Even then, I didn't have no walkovers, even though I had home advantage. I had the run of John White was undefeated. Neil Swain then went to be a Commonwealth champion. He was undefeated at the time. I took his record off him. Even people like the colourful Elvis Parsley, I think he boxed for the British title, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So after I beat him, and then I get to sort of like 10 or 11-0, and I get an undefeated a kid called Justin Murphy for an eliminator for the British featherweight, and that was probably the fight I learned the most from, because I took that fight at a day's notice. My first 10 rounder, by the way, I'll be on, but it was a chance of boxing for the British title. So it's an eliminator. My trainer's going, you can beat this kid who he'd never seen him fight. He's just guessing. So I took the fight. I wasn't that fit, but because I'm a hyperactive kid, and to be honest, featherweight for me then was never a struggle, because really I was a super bantamweight. If I would have really tried to make the weight, I was a super bantam, and a big super bantam. But so featherweight, I walked around it probably back then, 21 I was, 21, 22, so 21. So I probably walked around about 9'4". So losing 4 pounds was not even in a day really. Put a back then, couldn't do it now. Put a black bag on, a sweatsuit, and go for a run, don't eat, and that 4 pounds shifted off no problem. And I boxed this kid. I boxed great for the first 5 rounds, and then I ran out of steam because he was a big, strong kid, undefeated. Wanted to keep his undefeated record, and it was a big chance for him to fight for the British title if he were to win. And he chased me down, I got this cauliflower ear now, which I picked up on that fight because of that, taking it at short notice and not being fit, and then your judgment and your timing is slightly out as you get tired. And he kept catching me this big overhand right, and I remember the referee saying that after the fight, that if I weren't so far ahead early in the fight, he would have pulled me out, because my ear was disgusting. It was massive, it's like a big rabbit's ear. So I would bounce on my toes, and then when I stopped, my ear was still bouncing around. So dread and painful. I got the win, but then I didn't get the British title shot because it wasn't an official eliminator, which I didn't know anything about that. I was a young kid, and I learned then that taking all these fights at short notice is maybe not a good idea.
Yeah, I always wondered why you never got that British title shot, and now you've just answered my question. That you kind of took the question away there, because when you look through, and I was doing that research on him when I did the article about a year ago, and I was thinking, he never actually won the British title, but he had the eliminator, and obviously the history shows it as an eliminator, but as you said there, because it wasn't inverted commas an official eliminator, you never actually got that opportunity to fight for the British title. You kind of got moved straight on then, didn't you?
Yeah, and to be honest, the money was no good. I can't even remember what I got paid, so that means it's not good. Yeah, you don't remember what it is. So, but again, I didn't care about the money. It was like chance to get a title, because I had sort of quite a lot of fights in succession. I think I had like 10 fights in 18 months or something. But then I had a bit of a lull. Then I couldn't get any fights, and that became a little bit of a problem. And I was thinking, what's happening? I don't know, want to fight me. I'm not a big puncher, but I beaten a couple of undefeated kids on the way up, and obviously I beat Michael Levenny then, who was British champion by that point, and I beat Neil Swain, who was Commonwealth champion by that point. Well, so you can see why I was a little bit avoided. It was a kid who's hard to look good against, and he might beat you on points. It's not a great fight. And also matchmakers, it's a 12-round ball fest if you come up against me, if I'm having him all my own way. So that was it. So anyway, I get a few more fights under my belt, and my contract ended with Pat Thomas and Billy Aird. I didn't renew it. That was hard. I had to phone them up to tell him. I didn't just do what some boxers would do and just disappear. I phoned them up and did the right thing and said, no, I was a young man, but I had to do the right thing and say, listen, I'm not going to renew my contract. And they were disappointed and they were fine with it, but they were trying to tell me that I think you're making a mistake. And I just went, listen, I'm not getting no opportunities here, not earning no money. And obviously me and Pat Thomas never really trained in a boxing gym either. It was like crashes and squash courts. So the first 3 years of my career, I very rarely trained in a boxing gym, and that the environment wasn't that good. So I left. But I had a couple of fights with Di Gardner and promoted. I had no manager, but that was fine. I got offered some fight in South Africa, but it didn't. I don't want to go into details because it makes out that Di Gardner's a bit of a snake, and he's not. But the details weren't what they did turn out to be, sort of not the same as what the actual reality was. So I turned that one of the only fights I turned down. That was, and then I went off working in Ireland for 12 months. As I was doing boxing, just was one of the things I wasn't going to work out. I was gutted, but I moved on. I was earning some good money away from home, and my relationship with the mother of my daughter, that sort of blew up as well. So it was a sort of getaway, and luckily I didn't drink, so my life didn't spiral out of control because I didn't drink, I think. And went to Ireland I was there for about 9-10 months, and then did some sparring in the gym and thought, what am I doing? You know what I mean? Like 22 years of age, and what am I doing in my life? I've got to give this a crack, this boxing. Came back, signed up with Frank, went to see Ronnie Rush, who was Steve Robinson's trainer at the time, former world champion from Cardiff, and he opened a gym in my council estate, but I still lived and grew up. And then we went to see Frank Warren. I never met Frank before, and I said, want to sign me up? I was 14-0, I think, at the time, and he said, well, of course I will. And that was it then. I signed up with him. I had a couple of fights. Beat Peter Judson for the IBF Intercontinental in Sheffield, which was a good, again, that was a super featherweight shot. I got a phone call saying, do you want to box for an Intercontinental fight? And I said yes. It was a fantastic opportunity, and he said it's a super feather. So I was thinking, well, I'm a featherweight who's thinking about going down to super bantamweight. I got to go up a weight instead. So it just don't make any sense. But my father, and he was right, Peter Judson, we seen him beat Dean Phillips, who was a good, big, strong super featherweight from from Swansea area, and he stopped him to win the title, Peter Judson. And but my father said, you're not Dean Phillips. You won't try and knock this kid. You can't knock Peter Judson out. He's tough as nails. You won't try and knock him out. You'll just throw 1,000, which I did, over 1,000 punches in the fight, and I'll box him. And then we move back down to featherweight or super bantam. Just get it. You have a bargain into it, and you have a title. You have a belt launch, and they meant a little bit more than they do now. Not much more, but a little bit more back then. And I picked up the title, and I remember, on Sky, that I said I want to box Paul Ingle, who was British champion.
Yeah.
I'm glad I never, because he would have smashed me to pieces, Paul. But I wanted to box him for the British title. I said that's where I want to go. And then I didn't mention it. I was going to say it, but I want to go down again and box people like Pat Mullins and Spencer Oliver, who were the top super bantamweights at the time. Again, I didn't want easy fights. They were three fantastic fighters I mentioned there. But then I got, I had the defence of this IBF Intercontinental thing. I boxed this fellow called Afi Djelti, who were French Algerian, who just won the French title a couple of weeks before. And I beat him. He went on to beat, I think, three of the top 4 super featherweights in the country. Knocked out Dean Pithy, Gary Thornell. I think he stopped Charles Shepherd, who was a fantastic fighter, Charles, and to get a stoppage against him is not bad. Really good body puncher, this Jelty was. Went on to be a European champion. So I've beaten the Commonwealth, British and European champions and never got the belts. But so he was a good fighter. That was probably my best win, to be honest, achievement-wise, because he was a really good fighter. I beat him, and I think then I get some sort of rating in the IBF quite high. I think I'm maybe 10 or 11. So I'm stuck at this weight now, aren't I? This is where I am.
How did the world title shot come about then? Because obviously you fought Jadalti, and then that was obviously in the IBF rankings, and then all of a sudden there's a vacant WBO title there, and you're in there with Palacio.
Yeah, it's crazy because it was all. I was in Bridgend, which is in South Wales, at the amateur boxing show, dinner show, and I just had a mobile phone. It was one of those mobile phones where you'd have it, and you don't know whether it's going to last you like 6 months or 6 days. You pay like 90 quid. It was all like dodgy back then. And I had one of those phones, but I give the numbers out, and I get a phone call from Ernie Fossey, who was a matchmaker for Frank Warren, and he phoned me up and said, "Do you want to box for a world title?" And I told him to get lost. And I put the phone down because I thought he was winding me up. I thought it was just like going to piss off to me. And then he phoned me up again and sort of wasn't very nice towards me and told me what was what. And I said sorry. And he said, "Do you want to box for a world title?" And I said yes. He said, "Okay, we'll ring you back Monday." And that was it. This was like the Thursday. So I rang my dad up and I said, "Dad, I'm boxing for a world title." And he pretty much told me to get stuffed and almost hung up on me. And then I told him, I know Ernie Fossey rang me, and so my father said, "When?" I said, "I don't know when." "Who?" "I don't know who." "How much?" I said, "I don't know, Dad. I didn't ask." I didn't ask how much, who it was, where it was, when it was. I just said, it's a world title fight that I don't fucking deserve, let's be honest. So I said yes. And then, so I started thinking, right, I went home then. There was no real internet back then. There was no box rec. So I started to think, so you have the boxing news and the boxing monthly to get the latest ratings from the month before. And you're thinking, what, let's have a look. It's got to be super featherweight, so it's got to be the IBF. So the IBF still had Arturo Gatti as their champion. But I was almost 100% sure that he moved up in weight already by that point. But I'm thinking, what if it's Arturo Gatti? What if he won last fight? No, he smashed me to pieces. Gatti at super featherweight was a monster, by the way. I thought, well, but I don't care. I'm fighting Arturo Gatti. Number one contender for the IBF title was a very old Azuma Nelson. So I'm buzzing now. What if I get Azuma Nelson? He might be 38 years of age or 39 years of age, which back then mine was like being 49 now. But fucking it's Azuma Nelson. If he catches me, I goes to sleep. Obviously, no denying that. He's an all-time great. But I'm boxing Azuma Nelson. I can take that loss every day of the week. No, Azuma Nelson. And what if I have the fight of my life, and he has the worst night of his life? He gets really old overnight. His foot falls off, and he loses sight in one eye, and and all that, and he falls asleep after round 3, and I wins on, and then people will forget that I boxed an old man with no legs. They just remember I just beat the great Azuma Nelson. Pat Cotel didn't do it. Jimmy Mack couldn't do it. I did. You fantasise about all this, and I'll take that fight. Okay. Anyway, it turned out not to be any of those. It was the WBO title somehow. I don't know that worked out. But Frank Warren, of course, he has I go from like number 10 in the IBF rating, which I'm proud of that. Being top 10 in the world in any organisation is pretty good going. Or was good, not anymore, but it was good going before. Now you can be number 2 and box 25 journeyman. But I'm not slagging boxers off. I'm just saying it's all about marketing now more than anything else. But now exactly what I'm on about. I ended up being like number 8 in the WBO rankings overnight, and that title was vacant because I think a fella called Castillo and Julian Lawsey had boxed twice and got 2 draws for the title, amazingly. And that's it. So I took that. So December the 19th, about 3.5 weeks after I get a phone call, I'm boxing a world title. Again, no massive notice for a world title fight. None of these 6 to 12 week training camp bollocks and all that. It was just literally 3.5 weeks. But luckily, I was a hyperactive, even then, relatively naturally fit. fit. Obviously you look back and you think, I had no strength because I didn't really have time to train to get the strength working, the proper tactics for the conditioning right, but I was fit. The weight wasn't an issue because I walked around by then. I'm 23, I walked around about 9'7", so making 9'4" was not a problem. Most bantamweights walk around at 9'7", and fight at 8'6", so for me to lose like 3 pounds was nothing. And like I said, in most fights I'd weigh in at like 9 stone 2 because when I started training hard, I couldn't keep the weight on. and it was fine though, because most of the time I'd return at the weigh-in with a Mars bar in my mouth, and I would be fit, and I'd be fit like a heavyweight should be. Didn't have to worry about it. I could eat the right foods coming to a fight, so I'd be 100% fit. But then when you get to world level, that natural strength and power and size works against you. But anyway, I wins the world title fight. The best moment of my boxing career was realising a childhood dream. However false it really is, to be honest, I still to be crowned, to be called a world champion in a ring, and to have people cheering your name and all that, and being put up there with stuff, and the adulation and the promise and the hope of bigger fights awaiting was something that I only ever dreamed of as a 10-year-old kid in my bedroom, shadow boxing, and it became a reality on December 97.
Yeah, well, it's one of them things, isn't it? It's like you go back and you look at it now, and you in sort of hindsight, it's an amazing achievement no matter which way you put it. And you was a world champion, but then I think it was after this fight that they found a sort of anomaly, weren't it, on your brain, and then you was out then, weren't you, for a couple of years before you was able to come back. What was going on at the time? What was that like?
It was the worst thing in the world. I'm at the top of the tree, and I'm a world champion 1 minute. My life's going to change forever. Financially, my life's going to change forever. And then all of a sudden, I get a kick in the teeth. Boxing board didn't really explain too much. They just turned around and said, "There's a problem with your scan. You can't fight ever again." And it's like everything was slow motion for a while. What do I do now? Is there something wrong with me? My health in danger? Yeah. Can I really not fight again? I don't understand. And then it's only by chance I went to see a brain surgeon off my own back because I was worried about my health. And he looked at my scans and he said, "I can see where the issue lies, but I can't see why you're under any more danger than any other boxer in the country." And then from that conversation, which cost me about £1,500, I went back to the boxing board with a dossier of information, and a doctor friend come along with me and pleaded my case, in which they totally ignored. And justly so, to be honest. I really believe that, and I think I should have sued, to be honest. But I didn't think about it at the time. I just wanted my license back. But then, and Frank Warren doesn't always get good press. But I went to Frank, who was my manager at the time, and told him what was going on, and he paid for the barrister out of his own pocket, and I got my license back after all those months or years of being out, within about 10 minutes of a meeting, with as long as when I took a barrister there, just because there was no proof there was anything wrong with me. There was no proof at all. I think obviously the climate of the landscape of boxing at the time was a dodgy one, with Michael Watson suing the boxing board,
of course,
in his fight, and also Spencer Oliver in our March of '98, he collapsed in the ring as well. So I think it was the probably worst time for something to happen like that. But and also I was a bit of a scapegoat because the British Medical Association every few years always try and have a little run to ban boxing, and I think they had a little run then after Spencer Oliver, because that was a high profile fighter and a high profile fight on TV, with somebody having injuries which almost killed him, and I think they had a little push then to try and ban boxing. So I was a perfect scapegoat for the British Boxing Board to show how safety conscious they were, that they would even stop one of their world champions from fighting if he couldn't pass their medical requirements. But that world champion wasn't Chris Eubank, Nigel Benn, Frank Bruno, Nazim Hamid. It was a brand new champion called Barry Jones, who no one's ever heard of and wasn't worth 2 pence to anyone. So I think that was I think I got a bit of that. I think if that would have been a high profile fighter have the same issue as me at the same time, then I don't think it would have been an issue. I think it would have been investigated properly, and what would have happened to me they would have continued to box without any other palaver, to be fair. I think that's what would have happened. I just think they thought, it's not worth taking a risk, and that was it. So I got my license back. That was the main thing. But those 2 years I was out there was a massive shift in my weight division on the quality of fighters. When I won the world title, I wouldn't have been afraid to box any of the champions. I'm not saying I would have beat them, but there was no standout champions in my weight. But then when I came back there was a few. I think my weight was pound for pound probably the best in the world, because you had the IBF champion was Diego Corrales, who's obviously dead now, but what a fighter he was. 6'1" super featherweight, you could box and punch. Then the WBA champion was a former Olympic gold medalist, Yoel Casamayor, Cuban, who again, southpaw, could punch, beautiful boxer with a real horrible nasty streak, so not beating either one of those two. The WBO champion was pound for pound the biggest puncher in the world at the time, was Acelino Freitas, who was 23-0. The video I had of him was knocking out Anatoly Alexandrov, who was a really good world-class fighter from Russia or Ukraine, and he knocked him out in 2 minutes, and he was out for 5 minutes. So, that was my video of, this is the kid you're fighting. And then the WBC champion was Floyd Mayweather. So, so it's not a bad little run of champions there, is there, in that weight? I would put that weight at that time up against most weights since the 4 belts have been introduced ever, to be honest. Those 4 champions there making that weight so strong, I put them up against almost any weight.
But they're all Hall of Famers, aren't they? They're all Hall of Fame fighters, or guys that people speak about in this day and age.
Yeah, fantastic. So if I would have had the choice to box, and I didn't have a choice to box, because obviously Freitas was WBO champion. But if I would have had the choice, I probably would have picked Freitas anyway, to be fair, because I felt that as good as Freitas was, he was still a little bit green at that level, and I think he could be outboxed because he was so heavy-handed that he tried to kill you with every punch. So he made mistakes, he left gaps, and so I thought I would have picked him.
Was it difficult coming back after the layoff? It was like 2 years, weren't it, before you got back in the ring again? It was 99, and then obviously the Freitas fight was straight after that comeback fight. Was it difficult trying to get back into the gym, back into the ring, shifting the weight, things like that?
Well, the weight was never a problem. I was still small for the weight, so the weight was never an issue. I still should have been a featherweight even then, but the whole training was wrong. I sort of half trained myself for that fight. All these things are my own fault, by the way, because it's my career. But I sort of trained myself for that fight, and my mindset was I wouldn't have. Listen, I'm not making an excuse. I wouldn't have beat Freitas in a million years. He was just too good for me. But my mindset was wrong. I was just kept thinking about all the money I'd lost, because when you win a world title, you usually sign for. But back then, I'd signed for 5 defences, so I knew how much I was going to get, and it was good money. And obviously, it gets bigger as you get along, because they don't expect you to get the 5 defences or 4 defences. But if you do, then you're worth it. So I knew I kept thinking of all that money I missed out on. Now boxing, all of a sudden, it's become about the money. So I'm not enjoying it. I don't really enjoy it as much. And also, I should have had a couple more warm-up fights, and ignore the Freitas fight and sort of try to get a world title fight a couple of years down the line, 2002 or something, really, when I would have been like 28 or something. But I didn't want that. I wanted to get straight back to world title level, so that was it. So I didn't think about being out the ring for a long time. I just thought, let's get it on, and that was it. So I get this kid, I get offered the fight, and I'm full of confidence, like I always was. I was nervous, and realistically, from an outsider looking in, I could never win that fight. But to me, I thought, he makes a few mistakes. Long as I've never been on the floor in my entire life, amateur, pro, barring, I could take a good punch. So I thought, we'll see how good of a punch it is. I take a good shot, but he hit me and I fell over.
a few times,
a few times, yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a difficult fight for you back then, and obviously, like you say, he was pound for pound one of the hardest punchers at the time as well. And to be fair to you, you did pretty well getting in there with only that one warm-up fight, really, against Chris Williams back in '99. So you've got to think of it like that as well, and the other champions that were around at the time, and the other fighters. And I think given all that taken into consideration, what you've said about the fact that you practically train yourself, did pretty well to get in there with him, really.
But to be honest, though, he would have beat me anyway. I could have kept that title from '97 up until then, and that could have been like my 6th defence. He was faster than me, better boxing brain, faster feet, faster hands, bigger puncher, bigger man. He's too good, and I'm happy with that. I can accept that. Listen, you got to be honest and realistic. You come up against a guy who's too good for you, and I knew it from straight. I put him down on the floor, obviously, in the first sort of 20 seconds, because like I said, he makes mistakes because he tries to take your head off and everything. And he was tight for the weight, and it was obviously January, cold over him in the UK, so it was harder for him again to make the weight because obviously he's from Brazil, a warm climate. But he was too good, and I knew that. But I was proud of that fight because I went down 6 times in 8 rounds. And you shouldn't be proud of that, of course, but I got up 6 times.
Yeah, exactly.
And I never knew. You don't know how you're going to react. So you've been knocked down. I didn't know how I was going to react, and I reacted in the right way. I didn't jump up like a lunatic hero trying to throw bravado. I took my time, got on the knee, took my count, and I think, and tried to fire back. And I didn't charge him like a lunatic. That's not my style. I tried to stick to my plan. Tried to box him when I could. But he was too much for me. And I won a couple of rounds. I've had the official scorecards, and I've seen them, and I won the 4th and the 5th, and they were the only 2 rounds that I stayed on my feet. Ironically, and that was it. I remember saying, as honest as I try and be always, even to this day, someone said, "How do you think you're going to get on with this fight with Freitas?" And I said, "Well, when the telling time will be when he hits me the first big punch. And if I'm on the floor, I can't win this fight. And if I'm still standing, he can't beat me because he's not going to beat me on punch. That's what I do." And I think that was a perfect summary of the fight. And when he couldn't knock me down, I was doing quite well. I was doing very well, but ultimately I couldn't take his power. The man hit too hard. He smashed my ribs in the first left hook that he caught me with in the first round. He did so much damage to my left, to my ribs, that I suffered for years after with that. So yeah, it was just terrible. And like every time he hit me with the body shot, I'd go down, and it wasn't like being winded. It was just sheer pain, and I couldn't understand why I was going down. And I was annoyed with myself. And I was like, "What's the matter? What's the matter? I'm not out of breath." And he whacked me again, and I felt like crying, And then I watched the video back about 3-4 years ago. I see someone put it on YouTube, and I watched it back, and you can see me on the floor at one point, and the grimace on my face, I'm almost crying. And I get up, and I'm thinking, well, I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I had an effort. I made a go. I took a hiding like a man. Because you don't know. See, you might winning when you're the best is easy. You get all the pats on the back for winning, but if you're better than everyone, that's not hard. When you're not better, that's why I wasn't a fan of Nigel Benn's style, to be honest. I was a fan of Nigel Benn because he would do that and win. He'd be in fighters that were better than him. He had no right to winning, and he wouldn't just find a way to survive. He'd find a way to win, and that's a sign of a great fighter. It really is. I showed signs of not quitting, but I couldn't win. And to be honest, I didn't want pats on the back or anything, because I look back now with fondness and proudness of my effort. But at the time, people were saying, you went above and beyond, and I think, did I? This is a world fight. I can't think of any fighter who wouldn't leave their soul in the ring for the chance of being a world champion again, or for the first time. And that don't mean you have to fight with your face if that's not your style, but you do the best that you can do on that particular time. You might not be the best you are, but the best you can do at that time. And I did that, and it wasn't good enough. And then I knew my career was over, because I didn't love the sport anymore like I used to. And there was another issue in my scan, which wouldn't have been a problem, but I just couldn't. I had no desire to want to be. I'd fallen in love with the sport by that point. I knew I'd had sort of little times in my life when I was going to come back. I trained a little bit. I'd done sparring with some kids and done quite well. So I can come back. Then I sort of think, well, come back to what? This is not Joe Kawasaki coming back, with his big money fights. This is Barry Jones coming back, who's going to have to come back and at British level, going to come back. I'm not going to walk in in a multi-million-pound fight with a world champion. I'm going to go back at the lower level. And what if I get beat at that level? No, you think you're good, but sparring and fighting are two different things. So it's because I found power. See, when I retired at 25 and never boxed again, which is very young. I never really hit my peak. But then by the time I got to 29, 28, I could punch. A bit of man strength, holding your feet a little bit more, understanding not rushing your work. And so then when I got 30, I was going to make a comeback because I had more time. I could see things better. They say the youth's wasted on the young, and that's how it felt. I felt like I had all this time. I could see. I was sparring with people. I was making them miss by inches, and I whacking them, and they could feel the power. I don't mean that. I'm not saying I was like a Wayne Alexander, but I could bully people. I could push people back for the first time. And I thought, with my speed and skill that I always had, and now with a bit of weight behind my punches, I'm a different animal now all of a sudden. But it probably wouldn't have worked out for me, and I'm sort of glad I never, because I thought I was going to come back and earn a few million. I was going to come back and earn a few thousand. That's the truth of it.
Yeah, the reality of it. Yeah. So it sort of moves on from there then, and obviously you're watching boxing. Did you do before you started with BoxNation, which we'll move on to? Did you do anything before that in terms of punditry, commentary, anything like that? No,
never commentary. Never. I did a few punditry. I did a few little things on the radio for Radio Wales with Colin Jones. Obviously, they have a commentator. They have a commentator who talks throughout the round. You talk in between the round. So obviously, Colin Jones would do most of that. I'd chip in. Done about 3 of those, and I did about 4 jobs with Sky back when I was fighting in 90. But that was it really. And I never thought. I don't know how. I just literally walked into the job. But I literally did by accident. I had a friend of mine who was a friend of Steve Bunce's. Like I didn't know. I knew Steve. I didn't know him, but I knew of him now when I was fighting. But no, I didn't know him well enough to. I wouldn't have spoke to him if I'd seen him in a boxing in a venue anywhere. because I wouldn't have thought you would have known me. But even though he wrote some good articles about me at the time, but they wrote articles about million fighters, so they can't remember everyone. And but my friend of mine, he said, "Oh, this BoxNation show should start. This channel should started. Do you want to come on this Bunce Hours show? He has his boxing hour, and he gets all these fighters on from the 90s. By the time Steve was just getting any fight that he didn't have to pay to get on the show. That's what it was. And I kept saying no, I didn't want to do it because I'd still watch boxing. I stayed away from boxing. I put it to bed, and I didn't want to go back on TV, have my little 15 minutes of feeling like great and all that feelings back again, and then go back to work on the Monday. It's heartbreaking. And that transition from being a pro boxer, especially if you winning titles and stuff, or being on telly and have people shot, and then go back to a normal job, it's difficult. It really is. That transition is horrible because you're a little bit embarrassed because you feel like you haven't quite made what you think you should, what people think you should have. But in the end, then I said yes, I would. So I go on there. I said okay. I went on there, and I really enjoyed it. We spoke about December '97, the night I won the world title, and we spoke about, and I obviously had a great memory of it, and who fought as well, and how the other fights went on, Winky Wright, people like that, and and then the producer Jim Bentley said, "Do you want to come back? Do you want to come back on and do a bit of punditry?" And I said, "Oh, fantastic!" I just thought, just do one of these once a month, and that'd be fantastic. And it went from there, really.
Never looked back since.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I did that. I did another one in Cardiff, and then I was up in Glasgow for Ricky Burns versus Paulus Moses. Ricky was defending his WBO lightweight title. Be a pundit, or so I thought. And then when I got there, went up to the stage with Jim Rosenthal, Bunsey, and Anthony Croller. And then the floor manager said, "No, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm going to start work. What are you doing?" And he went, "No, you're ringside." So I went on the ringside. I think I must be sat ringside doing little reports in between the rounds or something.
Yeah.
And I was doing commentary with Alex Steedman. It wasn't funny at the time because I said no. First of all, I'm not doing that. I was annoyed. I thought they were taking the piss out of me, to be honest. I was like, I can't, because it's a different job. And all of a sudden I think, well, I've never done this before. And it is a different job. It's a much harder job where you have to talk throughout the whole fight rather than just before and after the fight when you digest what you've seen and come up with a sort of like a thought out answer or summary. Anyway, I did that. It was the best thing ever happened to me because I'm not saying I'm better at one or the other. That's for other people to decide. But it's kept me in steady work because being a pundit is a more enjoyable job. I have to be honest with you, and it's more fun. But I would get especially with something like BT, what I work for now, I would be moved on constantly for a bigger name because as much it don't matter who talks the most sense. If George Foreman wants to be a pundit on BT every week, he can sit there talking about his grills. And because he's George Foreman, they'll want him on because that will bring attention and promotion that you can't buy. So I understood that. So the co-coms thing is a little bit more. You're not on camera. I'm not really a fame-hungry type of guy, to be honest. I'm the worst self-publicist ever, to be fair. Like I really am. I'm just so shitty. But that it sort of suited me because you're not really on camera all the time, so you can go by your life without people driving you mad. But I'm still on boxing. I get to call some of the best fights in the world, and I'm lucky because I'm not. There's better fighters more qualified to do the job than I. But I've got ahead of them somehow with just a little bit of luck. And again, I never gone look like my boxing career. Never went looking for the fight. Never went looking for the job. It sort of found me, as strange as it goes. And I'm never giving it up. No,
I don't blame you.
Ever,
it's a great job.
Ever.
I absolutely enjoy being at all the shows and commentating on the shows. It's I never myself personally, I never dreamed of being able to do something of this in a similar fashion to what you're saying about yourself and the way you've sort of gone and turned up at a show and they've said, no, you're over there. You're going to sit there and you're doing that. And you're like, hang on a minute, this is not what I've come here for tonight. But I think once you get into it, as you know yourself, it's brilliant. It's fantastic to be so close to the action and it's as close as you're going to get if you're not a professional fighter to being there and to experiencing what the guys experience.
It is. It's the best seat in the house. Obviously, it's nerve-wracking as well because you're worried. You don't always get it right. You can only say what you think. People get upset. Obviously that Twitter thing is the worst place for people giving their expert opinion about every fucking thing. But it's people disagree with you and they want to let you know. Fighters, I have fighters sometimes message me saying they're not happy because I didn't think they won the fight or I didn't kiss their ass or whatever it was. Yeah. And I just sort of say this, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but I can just say what I think. This is not not a general consensus of how everyone else saw the fight. This is how I saw. All I do is see how I see it. Now, if people agree with me at home, that's great. If I'm leading people to agree with me, and that happens probably quite a lot, then that's just one of those things. That's if I'm near the judging scorecard or the judge, then I can't complain because they're professionals paid to do that job. They don't always get it right, of course, but who's to say people at home get it right, and the judges who are getting paid don't always get it right, but there's people at home who watch it, who half watch it while they're eating their dinner, having a curry and whatever, they get it right every time, and that's sort of, and it's hard to educate some people on how you score a fight now and how you actually watch it. Just watching a fight home and having an overall general opinion on who's won the fight. If you get a fight that's close, you go, this is a close fight. So you'll have it even after 8 rounds. You haven't scored each round. You say, this is anyone's fight. And whoever wins those last 4 wins the fight for you. But it could be a close fight for 8 rounds, but it could be 6-2 in one guy's favour.
Yeah.
So then the other guy wins the next 4 rounds. You don't mean he's drawn the fight then, haven't he? You know what I mean? It's not. So it can be like that way, and people don't always see it like that. And you try and tell them, and sometimes you watch a fight. I remember working for Radio 5 with Adam Booth, and it was Truax. Is it Caleb?
Yeah, Caleb Truax. Yeah.
Versus James DeGale, and he had DeGale winning by a point. No, I think I had Truax by 1. It was a close fight. But he's actually said on air that I feel like Truax has won, but my scorecard says that DeGale's won. So those close rounds, you don't like. It's funny how you score a fight and how people see it at home, and I'm pretty much talking about trying to justify criticism.
Yeah.
You get criticised sometimes, and you feel, and it's a horrible feeling. Like you think, and you can't explain yourself fully to everyone all the time because it just sounds like you're backtracking. Like people like Carl Froch, he gets crucified for this commentary. But Sky, I'm not saying he's good or bad. I'm not saying I'm not saying that. This is the guy's been a better fighter than I could hope to have been, achieved more than I could ever dream of. But he don't give a shit, or he might do, but he doesn't come across it gives a shit. He just goes, I read an article about him the other day. I'm good at my job. I can read the fight. He said I read the fight really well. That confidence, you know what I mean? I don't have that confidence. He said I read the fight really well. That's what I'm good at. I'm good at my job. And as long as his employers think he's good, then he must be good, But he won't be bothered by the criticism. But someone like me who doesn't have that air of arrogance and a confidence about me, I sort of get affected by when people say you're shit. And also when people say, I get more favourable comments than bad comments, to be honest. And I try not to get too carried away with them either. I had the guy from the Ring magazine, the editor of the Ring magazine, messaged me the other week, and he was saying he thought I was excellent. I think they took our commentary for BT on Showtime. Now that's a wicked buzz. I don't know the fella personally, but he's obviously a boxing guy because he's the editor of the Ring magazine, and he's watching in America on Showtime, and I'm thinking, how the fuck could he understand me? You know what I mean? How could he understand me? They must have had subtitles.
Translation.
But that's fantastic because he's a boxing guy, and it was in America, and they think I'm good. No, he thinks I'm good. No, in my mind, no, I've conquered America. So you know what I mean? I'm like, now I'm on a massive contract somewhere.
You're on. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on outside of, on social media about BoxNation and BT Sport. I'm not going to ask you to comment too much about it because I know you.
I can tell you what I know, which is nothing. I know the same as you guys. I know that BoxNation used to show BT shows, but now that's no longer the case. I think you can still get BoxNation for free on the BT. If you have BT Sports, you still get BoxNation as part of the package for nothing, which I don't understand why personally, I don't know. I'm not involved. I'm just a freelance, so I just
of course, no, of course.
BoxNation, so it's just because I do lots of work for them. People tend to think it's part of the company. No, I have no information. I find out when fights are happening on BoxNation, usually on Twitter, like the rest of you. And then I just hope I'm working.
Well, that's what I was going to say to you. You seem to obviously the transition seems to have been made where a lot of the fights you call now are on the BT Sport channel as opposed to BoxNation because they've took that in a different direction, which is it's all common knowledge. It's all public knowledge. We all know about that now. Yeah.
I understand it's disappointing because it was sold as like this is going to be all in one and it's a simulcast and everyone's going to have the same stuff and BoxNation. I think BoxNation they're showing the Garcia fight. Hopefully they get some more fights. I think it's going to change slightly. The money's there to buy everything, but I would say to people, give it, do what you want to do. First of all, boxing fans get hit the most in the pocket than any other sports fans.
Of course, yeah.
For any of the sports we do. But BT now got 3 pay-per-views by the end of the year. With Frampton, Warrington, Golovkin, Canelo in a couple of weeks, and also Fury and Wilder. They're 3 fantastic fights.
Yes.
But they're still extra money. Sky will have at least 2. They have Joshua in September, and they'll have another 2. I think they'll have another 1 guaranteed, maybe 2. And and then obviously Groves and Smith, Callum Smith on ITV box office as well. It's like, where does it end? Plus you're paying subscriptions anyway,
of course,
to get all these things. And then obviously BoxNation's £12 a month or whatever it is, and you want to watch all the boxing. That's the thing. You're a boxing fan, so like I never bought the last Sky pay-per-view, one of the first ones. I was out and about, and I got home in time to watch it. I thought, you know what? I don't think it's pay-per-view worthy, because in my mind, pay-per-view should always be like, I'm not a promoter or TV exec, but and they just think if people want to watch it, if there's demand for it, we'll charge extra for it. And listen, if it was your company, you do the same. I always think that to justify it to the public, a pay-per-view should only happen when the people box it, the main bill, are getting millions. So you have to draw the money from somewhere.
Of course you do.
I can I might not want to pay for it. I want to be happy. I can understand that, because how are they going to pay these fighters? No. And if the fighters are too greedy, I don't know. But how are they going to pay the fighters if we can't generate the extra cash? But when you have like 8 fights on the bill, one of these super bills they have, and Frank Warren's done it, so has Eddie Hearn done it. And they have like 7 really good fights, but no one's getting paid a fortune. You think, well, hang on, we're being ripped off here, because you could just have 2 of these fights on another TV date, or that's 3 TV dates you jammed into one to justify a pay-per-view. That's not fair. I think that's not fair for us paying. In fact, and by the way, I paid for everything. I paid for BoxNation, I paid for pay-per-view, but I didn't get the last pay-per-view on Sky because I didn't think it was pay-per-view worthy, and it turned out to be a fantastic evening of fights.
I know, I was just going to say that. It's weird, isn't it, how sometimes it works like that. I was saying it actually on one of the episodes a couple of weeks ago of this podcast, that obviously you get situations where people will say, oh, it's not pay-per-view worthy on paper. However, that particular show turned out to be one of the best shows of the year in terms of quality and what it delivered.
But in my mind, though, because nobody was getting fortune, it shouldn't have been pay-per-view.
I agree.
That should be enough. We should just be raving about that as a fantastic fight.
Yeah, no, I agree. I didn't think it was pay-per-view worthy.
Yeah, but no, I'm gutted I missed it. Because it turned out to be a good night. So, and I'm not just saying that because it was a Sky and all. I have no interest. I have a loyalty to Frank Warren, because he's been good to me throughout my career, through my boxing career with the licenses, and he pretty much brought me a world title fight. Let's be honest. And also with my job now with BT, because I don't think BT really wanted to use me, to be honest.
Well,
I don't think I was top of their list, to be fair.
But you're doing a great job, and you seem to get for all the negative stuff that you talk about, you do get a lot more positive from what I can see on social media.
No, I do. I get loads of great stuff. I probably get more good stuff than anyone else. To be fair, I think I do realise that, and I do, and it's humbling. But you can't take it to heart, because then you have to take. If I take that to heart, I have to take it hard with all the shit I get as well.
Yeah, that's true.
I get plenty of shit. You just, people think I get all the good stuff. No, just think how bad other people get it, because I get enough bad stuff and abuse and horrible stuff. By the way, like really bad on Twitter. You wouldn't believe some of the stuff we'll say.
Oh no, I could. I certainly could.
Beyond personal. Like if they said it to your face, it wouldn't matter if they were 6'4". You chin them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It wouldn't matter. You did them anyway, and you get and you take your hiding because you couldn't accept what people say to you. It's unbelievable. The stuff I had for Liam Williams and Liam Smith, the stuff I had off the Williams family as well. If I wasn't from Wales, I'd never go back there. You know what I mean? Like it was horrendous. Like, but then I realised that most of it was because people hate Liam Smith for some reason. I don't know him, to be honest. But on social media there seems to be a lot of hate for him and his brother.
Yeah, you're right. I've seen a lot of that. I don't know why.
I don't know why. It's probably because they're opinionated. That's all it is. And so I have half of them with Liam Williams fans, expecting me, because I'm Welsh, to just go for the Welsh fighter, and the other half would because they didn't like Liam Smith and they wanted to see him get beat. And to be honest, and I think, and my score, I had going into the last 2 rounds, it was anyone's fight. I had Smith up by 1 going into the last 2 rounds, which I think was fair. It could have gone, and then for me, he pulled away in the last 2 rounds. He looked like he wanted it more. I'm not saying he did, but that's what it looked like, and he took the fight in a close fight, and that was it. Without the commentary song, it was irrelevant. There's 2 of us commentating, and I just saying what I see, and John's saying what he thinks he sees. We don't always agree, and we don't always coaggregate, I guess, our opinions. So he'll say what he thinks, and people just, and also when people want to hear something, they only hear what they want to hear.
Yeah, that's also true as well. Yeah, I think
I said, it's unbelievable, isn't it, sometimes? But anyway, that was it. So, but like I was saying about Warren and Hearn, it's a good job of rivalry, because there wasn't a rivalry for a while, but now there is a rivalry, and it's good because there'll be competitive fights, but also boxing fans will get hit in the pocket because there'll be more pay-per-views.
Yeah, of course they will. Yeah.
And I don't know how you stop it. For me, no, I do commentating hit BT. That's down to Frank Wallen. So he's been nothing but good to me. I'm not saying it's been intentional. I don't know. It might be for what he thinks, but what can I say? But that was it. So it's but also it's never been a better time for being a box fan. Like, people constantly moaning about BoxNation, and I can understand why, because I'm moaning about it as well. Because, by the way, all these shows that we're missing, I'm not getting paid. And me or Steve Bunce, by the way. I know Steve gets so much shit. He invites a lot of it, to be fair, but he gets so much shit. He gets the blame for everything BoxNation does, but he's just a freelancer like me. He gets paid per show. That's all he does. Just because he's on there all the time. That's all that is. All these the boxing hours gone, and the shows that they've missed out on recently. We don't. We're more disappointed than you guys, because we don't get paid. And it's a living. This is my life, by the way. This is my livelihood. So I make a living. Without those shows, I don't get paid, and without don't get paid, I can't pay my mortgage. Yeah. I'm not Carl Froch, who's retired with millions in the bank and owns 100 houses. I'm Barry Jones, who's overdrawn by £1 million. I'm a millionaire on paper, and I owe 1.5 mil.
No, it's obviously good to be the transition and where it's taking you, and I think really I just want to get your final thoughts. Really, you said it earlier about there's no better time to be a boxing fan. I really want to pick your brains and find out for you a couple of standout fighters for you at the moment. Who would they be?
Oh, there's a few for me. Obviously Lomachenko, Alexander Usyk, you got Mikey Garcia, the obvious ones, Terence Crawford, Errol Spence. They're standouts for me. They really are, because all slightly different styles, but beautiful in their own right. Garcia is a good boxer, but he's all about raw power. I think Crawford's so athletic in his movements. Errol Spence is another Donald Curry for me. Keeps his shape really well. Beautiful to watch, technically superb. And Lomachenko's like a magician. You just don't know where things are coming from. Uzyk's a bigger version of him, but probably a little bit more bull-like. So they're just fantastic fighters to watch. And I don't think we've ever had so good. I think we have this. I'm romantic about the 80s, which is for me the greatest era of boxing in my mind, because I grew up watching that. But it's fantastic. It really is. I think even I know it's Golovkin Alvarez now in about 3 weeks' time. It's tainted because Alvarez has obviously been taking drugs, or seems to have been taking drugs. But it's still a great fight. Yeah, it is against two top quality operators fighting each other, and that's all we've ever wanted in sport. I don't take too much notice of what titles are where now. I don't give a shit about what organisations sanction this fight or who's a world champion. I think for me, boxing's gone beyond that now. A world champion now, I feel sorry for the fighters, but a world champion, it doesn't carry the same weight. And I mean, that started with people like me, fighters who were good, decent fighters, but really shouldn't have been world champions. And you could fire names at me all day since Ben came over to Britain. It was in 91, 92 with that WBO title that he won off Doug Dibbett and then defended against Iran Barkley. Since he came over with that title, you could just rattle off names, and I could just go no, and you say, would they be world champions if in the real world of boxing? And they're all good fighters. Well, I was a good fighter, and even before, but it was before that. Let's not get carried away. It's always been the same, but now it's just gone too much the other way. There's too many fights, too many titles, too many organisations having interim champions and champions in recess and super champions. It just gets beyond. I don't understand it. I don't. You try and explain to somebody like about 4 years ago, maybe. Yeah, there was the WBA welterweight title was fought for by 4 fighters on the same night in the same ring. Digest that. How can that happen? And it did. Impossible. It did. It won a tag team fight. It was a normal rules. How can that happen? And also on the same night goes the WBA light heavyweight title was boxed by 4 fighters on the same night in 2 different continents. So there was one in Russia and then one in Germany. Sorry, Bramer was boxing, and then Shumanov at the time was another WBA champion, and he was defending his title in Texas. So it's just beyond. How do you explain that to an armchair fan, somebody who likes boxing but doesn't really understand what's going on? Yeah. And that's why we're not on primetime terrestrial TV, because the boxing fans can't decipher who the number one is. How can the layman and the armchair fan, how can they decipher who the best anymore?
No, you can't. You're right. Yeah, I totally agree. It's always been something that's kind of brought it down a little bit.
But people are fighting each other. That's a good thing, though. They feel like real quality fighters are fighting each other, willing to fight each other. Because there's more money in the sport at the highest level. That's why. And I think the grassroots is struggling because of that, mind. But I think So it's for TV, and I think BoxNation has helped with that massively. By the way, there's never been a better time to be a boxing fan. And people are moaning about BoxNation now because they've realised realised, people used to moan about BoxNation all the time about the quality of production, it's not as good as Sky. Well, Sky are a multi-billion pound company, that's why. But it's, all the fights we would see week in, week out, and now we don't see as many anymore. And now you realise what you got, what you've missed, and you sort of, when in the times gone by, when would we ever see any international fights? You wouldn't.
No.
You would pray that Sky would get one overnight, because they buy a fight. What's the worth of showing a fight at 4 o'clock in the morning? Who wants to watch it? But I think BoxNation have proved there's enough die-hard fans, to warrant having a boxing channel. It really is. So with that, BT getting involved within, Sky will up their game, and who knows, like the Zone might end up coming over to the UK, or another sort of app-based sports outlet might start to show some boxing, and then then it really kicks on. I think the most important thing is that I get work. Basically.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So when anyone listening to this or watching this who wants to be my agent, then please, just get me all the work you can. I'll literally work for tips, and I'll work topless if I have to. Nothing too little.
Oh, Barry, you know what? It's been it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. It's been really, really good to get an insight into your career. And I know you've probably done stuff like this before, but it's really good for you to give us a sort of breakdown of your whole career, the goings on, the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, your thoughts on the current boxing scene, the fighters, the pay-per-view stuff. It's been a really good, enjoyable experience to be able to speak to you, hear your thoughts, walking into commentary jobs.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who knows, I might walk into be a promoter next.
Yeah, you never know. Did you ever consider that? Did you ever consider actually going back and training fighters or doing anything of that nature?
Do you know what? I would. It's funny, see, because I'm a little bit like Tim Witherspoon. I don't want to train a fighter, but I don't have the effort of having them from scratch. So I want to be like an Angelo Dundee, just come in for the last sort of 4 weeks, do technical stuff, and get paid all the money. I'm too thin-skinned to be a trainer. I'd love to train kids, and maybe I will, but training a kid and then leaving you for someone else, and it's not. And it might be the best thing for him, but I would struggle with that, because you get a bomb as a trainer.
Yeah.
And I think I would struggle with that. Then he just ups and leaves you for someone else because it's better for his career, which you can't blame him, but it's still personal. So by the way, I think trainers should get 25% and managers should get 10. That's what I think, because the trainer does more work, and it might not be just a skill job apparently, but I think it is. He does more work, and he's close, and he's in with you every day. And I think 10% with no contract, by the way, most of the time, it's the trainers don't really get any security, and unless you get to the level like Adam Booth, where he takes a bigger percentage because he says, listen, I can guarantee you want to be a world champion, which he seems to produce almost every time he trains a fighter, then this is the price you have to pay, and he charges him for his time, and you can understand why, because fighters are fickle in many ways, but also it's their career, and you can't blame them. You only get one shot at it, you can't go back again, as we all find out. Otherwise we'd all be coming back, wouldn't we, to be honest? But anyway, I always thought I was going to be a model. I don't know what happened.
Oh, always the comedian. Oh no, Barry.
Sean, it's been a pleasure talking to you, mate. I know I go on, and I've taken like 2 hours of your time, and you're going to edit for the rest of your life, but yeah, it'd be nice talking to you, mate.
No, it's been a pleasure to get you on. I really appreciate you taking the time out to do it, and obviously I look forward to hearing you on BoxNation BT Sport again soon, and thanks very much.
Yep, this Friday in Glasgow, and more importantly, September the 15th, I'll be in Vegas for Canelo and Golovkin too.
Well, there you go. Great having Barry Jones on the podcast. Really, really good episode. Really enjoyed speaking to Barry about his career, about what he does as a commentator, what his opinions are on fighters, and his opinion on the situation with BoxNation BT Sport, the situation with pay-per-view fees. It was really, really good to get all them thoughts. So I hope you enjoyed the episode, and you know where to find us. It's at BTR Boxing Pod on Twitter, Facebook, Beyond the Ropes Boxing Podcast, and we're now on Podbean. We're no longer hosted through SoundCloud, so if you go and find us, we're on www.beyondtheropesboxingpodcast.podbean.com. You'll find our little mini site, which is really great to have as well, and you can find us. We're back on iTunes, we're still on Stitcher, TuneIn, Castbox, all the most reputable podcasting listening apps. Please rate, review and subscribe to our new site, the podcasting site, the Podbean one, and give us your thoughts. Let us know what you thought of the episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.